Wondery Plus subscribers can listen to Morbid early and ad-free. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts.
You're listening to a Morbid Network podcast.
Redacted, Declassified Mysteries is a new podcast hosted by me, Luke LaManna. Each week, I dive into the hidden truths behind the world's most powerful institutions, from covert government experiments to bizarre assassination attempts. Follow Redacted on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, weirdos. I'm Elena.
I'm Ash.
And this is Morbid.
Beep, beep, boop.
Beep, beep, boop. Hello.
Hey there.
It's still spooky season. We're feeling good.
Spooky season forever and always.
We were in a pumpkin patch.
Oh my god. If you looked at my Instagram story today, you saw that Elena and I essentially cleared out the entire pumpkin patch.
Yep, we definitely did. My entire porch is filled with pumpkins, as it should be.
I cannot wait to get home and put mine out.
But yeah, I think this week some crazy stuff kind of happened, but like didn't happen at the same time.
It presented itself.
Yeah, I think so. We all got excited when we heard that the Zodiac killer might have been identified.
But it's still a very heavy might have been.
Yeah, and it's starting to become more of a heavy... there's nothing that confirms this yet. Like so far, as of this recording at least, no DNA has confirmed it. We don't have anything really, really, really solid that we could point to.
No.
So we, as exciting as it is, and as much as we all want to jump and be like, yay, it's solved, because who doesn't want like decades old cold cases to be solved? We all want that. That's why we're all here. This one's looking a little shaky. Sure, those lines in his forehead look like the lines on the sketch. I will say that.
A lot of people need Botox, and that doesn't mean that they're a serial killer.
And also, though, it kind of... I mean, his eyes, they look exactly the same. There's a lot of
the sketch looks a lot like him.
But I think that also could possibly... We have to remember that we're all human, and since we want it to be him so bad, we're seeing a lot of similarities. And he's, just a random white dude. In the sketch is just a random white dude.
Yeah.
There's going to be some similarities there. We're just going to see it.
He didn't even have the bifocals.
He didn't have the bifocals. So...
You don't have the bifocals, you must
acquit
to the focals.
There you go. There you go.
That must say bye to the focals.
That made a lot of sense.
Yeah, everything I say makes sense.
But yeah, so I know we got excited too.
But, we were stoked.
But hopefully we'll be able to update and say like, hell yeah, and we can all party together and say that the Zodiac got identified.
Let's vibe.
But right now, Gary is looking kind of like, okay, sure. Like if they said it was him, I'd be like, all right. But if they said it wasn't, I'd be like, all right.
Either way, you're all right.
Yeah, there's nothing that's really, I don't know. He's not a compelling suspect to me, but I don't know.
Just yet. Anyways,
who am I?
We don't know.
Who am I? An investigator? No. So
you're investigative.
Not on the case. So I don't know.
Not
but
on the
we'll
case
see.
That Paul is on.
Hopefully we get it. Maybe at the end of spooky season we'll get it.
Maybe.
Who knows? But I think the only other thing I just wanted to point out was that everybody should listen to a really good podcast.
Ooh.
I was listening to, I don't know if anybody is as obsessed with Maggie Freeling as I am.
You love Maggie
I love her.
We were actually just having this conversation today, and I haven't listened to the show yet, and I need to.
Yeah, I love her. And
this is genuine.
The podcast Murder in Alliance, it's so good.
Murder in Alliance?
Yes, Murder in Alliance. And lately, I mean, the episodes are just getting so compelling. Ooh. She's amazing. I don't want to tell you a lot because I want everybody to go listen to it, because I was listening to the latest episode and I was like, Maggie has to be one of like the best true crime podcasters. Like just the way that this story went and the way that she truly followed the facts and took all...
I appreciate that.
Even a preconceived idea of what she thought was happening in the case that she was covering. She looked at the facts and it brought her a different way. And she let it. And and I thought that was amazing. So I just wanted to call that out because I thought that was really cool.
That is really cool. I'm like gonna listen when I on my way home.
And I was hoping we would have like an update on the Gabby Petito, the hunt for Brian Laundrie this week.
Imagine like how her family is feeling, because even like on the outside over here, it's so frustrating.
It's making me so angry. But they do have the Gabby Petito Foundation up and running, so that is a good thing. So if you can go check that out, I highly recommend that.
Totally.
But yeah, hopefully all these things will have good news.
I think he's still out there. I really genuinely feel that.
I do too, and I think we'll find him.
Yeah,
I hope find him. Someone's gonna find him.
Something's gonna happen. Something's got to give.
We're gonna take that dirty laundry out. We're gonna do it. Ugh.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's all the real updates that are going on.
I was gonna say, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I've got an Ash-centric case for you, except it's not very Ash-centric. It's like not very old Hollywood or anything like that. It's just my case.
It's just, an Ash case.
An Ash case, and it takes place in Canada. So, hello, Canadian listeners.
We love a Canada.
It takes place in Canada and America.
So, whoa.
Yeah, best of both worlds.
Hey, let's all high five. Woo!
Okay. So Nancy Rentz was born in Alberta, Canada, to her parents Gary and Donna Rentz. Gary was a social worker, and he was like super well respected in their town. He eventually was actually able to run his own business, and while doing that, he set up different educational and social programs for the government.
Oh, okay.
So like very well respected.
Yeah.
Now, Nancy grew up in Edmonton, a small city in Alberta. She had a twin sister, Krista, who was like literally a built-in best friend. They called each other soulmates.
Oh,
like,
I love that.
They like loved being twins. It was
adorable.
So important, and they had such a strong bond. They also had a younger sister named Jill and a brother named Jeff. Growing up, Nancy was like super sporty. She played ringette, which is really similar to hockey. Have you heard of it?
No.
I had never heard of it either. It's like very similar to hockey, I guess. You like play it on ice with like this like pole thing, and it's like apparently it's like really, really difficult.
I didn't even know. Anything on ice, I'm always I don't think we fully appreciate hockey players, like how hard that is.
Not only do they skate forwards, but they also go backwards.
Like, I can't even stand on ice skates.
I was just gonna say, I literally can't even step onto the ice without like making a fool of myself.
And also, they're like going really fast, like
insanely.
Hard. Yeah,
and
it's
sometimes
always amazing to me.
Backwards, like I can't even walk backwards.
Yeah,
I can barely walk forwards.
Oh, so ringette is a Canadian non-contact winter team sport.
Yeah,
played on ice hockey skates.
Yeah, it's literally like just like hockey.
So it's like no contact.
Yeah, but you just can't like hit each other. But
okay, cool.
Yeah. And apparently it's like really geared toward women.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
That's pretty rad.
And she was really good at it.
Get it.
People said that when she was younger, she was like a little bit of a geek, and she had like the Coke bottle glasses.
Oh my God, adorable.
Which, if you see pictures, correct. Oh my God, adorable. And also, who didn't have the Coke bottle glasses in like 1973? That's all they had to offer.
I was going to say, like, it was required to go to school, I think.
Legit. But as she got older, she grew out of that, and she surrounded herself with like a really awesome group of friends, and she was stunning. Like, she was a beautiful girl. Her brother Jeff said when she walked into a room, that's where people wanted to be. Which I was like, imagine your brother saying that about you. Like, that's just a really sweet brother thing to say.
Yeah.
She was also super into fashion, jewelry. She really appreciated different kinds of art. And actually, for a little while, she ran her own clothing store as kind of a side hustle. And her main job, because she was apparently incredibly intelligent, was with IBM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just that.
No, but very casual.
Just super duper cash. And it was at IBM that she met Bradley Graham Cooper, which we're going to call him Brad Cooper so that it doesn't get confusing.
Yes, because I was just about to be like, wait a second.
Yeah, and I think most people called him Brad anyways. He was also from Alberta. In fact, they were born just 7 weeks apart in the same year, 1973. And they were both in their mid-20s when they met in 1999. So Brad Cooper grew up with his family in Medicine Hat, Alberta. He was born to his parents Terry and Carol Cooper, and he grew up with a brother. Not sure if he was older or younger, and couldn't find his name. So I was like, he's got a brother.
Yeah, he's got a brother.
But his father Terry was a chemistry teacher, and he actually became the vice president of Medicine Hat College, and he eventually earned a couple of seats on like super important community boards in the area. Like a very well respected man.
Wow.
Which is interesting because like both of their dads are like really like prominent members in society. Yeah. And his mother, Carol, was a stay-at-home mom, took care of him and his brother, and apparently she was a really good gardener.
Oh,
which I was like, that's adorable.
That is very wholesome.
Yeah, it's very like all-American, all-Canadian.
All Canadian.
You know? Brad himself was like really, really smart. He did really well in school and his IQ was above average. He pretty much had a way of just like figuring out how to be good at whatever he wanted to be good at. He had also this blog called Adventures of Brad, where he would write about all the things he wanted to do.
Adventures of Brad.
Adventures of Brad.
That's amazing.
Like very 90s.
Wow.
Very the internet just came out.
Very much what is the internet.
Also really creative.
Yeah,
Adventures of Brad. Like, okay.
I'm Brad. These are my adventures.
Also like moderately narcissistic.
It doesn't, you know what? It doesn't bury the lead. You know what you're getting. You're getting the
true.
adventures of a guy named Brad.
Of Brad.
I don't need to ask any more questions. I'm here.
There you are. And
I mean, I'm not here, but someone else will be there.
yeah, I'm definitely nobody's
I don't
there
care
anymore,
about
I
Brad's
hope.
adventures, but somebody else might have.
I'm gonna let you know that you shouldn't give a fuck about Brad's
Cool.
adventures.
All right, because I already didn't. So.
But at the same time, I'm also going to tell you about some of his adventures.
Okay, cool.
Not really even adventures. That's the other thing.
Misdeeds.
No, I don't need just like things.
Oh, okay.
Just like things that Brad did is what he should have named it.
Things that Brad did.com.
Thingsbraddid.com.
In a quiet suburb, a community is shattered by the death of a beloved wife and mother. But this tragic loss of life quickly turns into something even darker. Her husband had tried to hire a hitman on the dark web to kill her. And she wasn't the only target. Because buried in the depths of the internet is the kill list, a cache of chilling documents containing names, photos, addresses, and specific instructions for people's murders. This podcast is the true story of how I ended up in a race against time to warn those whose lives were in danger. And it turns out convincing a total stranger someone wants them dead is not easy. Follow Kill List on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to Kill List and more Exhibit C true crime shows like Morbid early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus. Check out Exhibit C in the Wondery app for all your true crime listening.
Hotshot Australian attorney Nicola Gaba was born into legal royalty. Her specialty? Representing some of the city's most infamous gangland criminals. However, while Nicola held the underworld's darkest secrets, the most dangerous secret was her own.
She's going to all the major groups within Melbourne's underworld, and she's informing on them all.
I'm Marcia Clark, host of the new podcast, Informants Lawyer X. In my long career in criminal justice as a prosecutor and defense attorney, I've seen some crazy cases, and this one belongs right at the top of the list.
She was addicted to the game she had created. She just didn't know how to stop.
Now, through dramatic interviews and access, I'll reveal the truth behind one of the world's most shocking legal scandals. Listen to Informants Lawyer X exclusively on Wondery Plus. Join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and listen to more Exhibit C true crime shows early and ad-free right now.
Yeah, I mean, he had some good accomplishments, and the accomplishments went into a section of the blog called Goals Completed.
Hey,
I'm
again,
like-
again, very to the point.
This could have just been a personal list that you made for
I mean,
yourself.
that's just what you write in your bullet journal, but like, okay.
Like, these are the goals I'd like to attain, and
Done
these
it.
are the accomplishments. I'm going to close the pen now.
Well, that's when the narcissism comes in, because
Right.
it's like you
Everybody
have to do
needs
it
to
for
know.
everybody else. You can't just write it in your little journal.
Exactly. Now, just to give you like a little insight as to Brad, who he was, those accomplishments were things like Iron Man challenges, which is a big deal. Those are hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm never, ever going to try
It's
that.
a pretty big deal.
He also finished his master's degree and a triathlon.
That's awesome.
He was doing good things.
yeah.
Just your average day to day.
By the way you're speaking, I'm feeling like
what the fuck
Like
ever.
we're all not going to give a shit about those good things in
No,
the
I
end. Okay.
literally couldn't care less.
Cool. All right.
But like beast mode.
So that master's, I don't care about it.
Yeah, Yo Masters.
I don't care.
I mean, it's pretty impressive, you know.
I want a master's, but like here we are.
You know what's really funny is when you said that, I was going to be like, you have one.
No, I don't.
You seem like somebody that does.
I probably have the amount of time for that I've been in school for a master's, but
100 gazillion
don't have the
percent.
paper.
But you've got very good other things.
Thank you.
I don't know. I don't have a degree in anything, so that's where we're at. But anyways, Brad had later in his life talked to a psychiatrist, and he just basically said that when he was a child and a teenager, life was like really uneventful and his family got along fine. They were just your day-to-day family. But the psychiatrist noted that he had some, quote, detachment with little emotional warmth when he was talking about his childhood and his family.
Concerning.
Concerning, because I talk about my family with a lot of warmth.
You're supposed to have a little emotional warmth, I think. And this is coming from someone with very little emotional warmth. So if I'm saying it, you should have it.
But, you know, she said he had a little emotional warmth.
All right,
so he had a little tiny bit.
All right, cool.
But he also had some detachment.
Yeah, that's a little.
Like, you don't really want much detachment anywhere.
No.
Anyways, when Nancy and Brad first met, she was actually already dating this like really prominent businessman from Calgary who she was really involved with. But there was something about Brad that really drew her in. She was used to dating like super outgoing guys who were popular but weren't really headed in the direction that she was. It kind of seemed like they were content where they were for
resting on their laurels.
Yes, and like motivated in a business sense but maybe not a family sense.
Oh, okay.
And Brad to her seemed different. He was quieter, he seemed a little more serious, and really Nancy was at the time in her life where that's what she wanted. She wanted to have children and settle down. And the guys she was dating just really weren't there yet. I think they were more focused on like their business.
Yeah.
And she was like, but I want to have a home life.
Yeah.
And that happened when she met Brad. She told her sister that her heart felt safe with him.
Oh.
Which, like, please ruin me. That's the sweetest sentence.
That's a really sweet thing to say.
My heart feels safe with him. Like, that makes me hurt.
Yeah.
But Brad must have felt the same because he bought Nancy a gorgeous ring and he asked her to marry him. And originally they had planned like this really big wedding with all their friends and family. They wanted to go all out. But then Brad actually ended up getting a really good job offer from Cisco, which is like a phone company. It's like the phone company.
It's the phone company.
Or like
ever heard of it?
It was. And for the job, he was going to have to move to America, in North Carolina to be specific. And he was one of very few people in the country who were doing this kind of work. It's very confusing, but essentially it involves like merging internet technologies and phone technologies.
Yeah.
That's what his job was.
For sure.
Just IT, I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know,
The internet. Now, Brad was a whiz at that kind of thing. He actually designed the network for the family business that Nancy's family ran together. And I guess their IT guy like came and looked at it once and was like, who designed this? Like, this is incredible.
Really?
Like, they were very impressed when they saw it. So he was really, really good at this stuff. Right. Now, before they moved, they wanted to spend a lot of time with their family. Nancy's family really grew fond of Brad, and her little sister Jill spent like almost every single weekend at their apartment. And she was like, he was a warm guy. Like, I liked being around him, and he made my sister happy. I was like kind of thinking of like you and John.
Yeah.
Because I was at your apartment every weekend when I was younger. And I never left. I'm still here every weekend. Still here. But because they wanted to get married with their family still being able to be there, they ditched the idea of the big wedding. Because the other thing was, if Nancy was going to move to America with Brad, they had to get married before they moved because of like visa purposes. Yeah. So they got married at a restaurant one Friday night in October of 2000. Nancy looked beautiful. She wore like this like kind of looked like a satin. One place described it as a sundress, but when I saw a photo, it didn't really look like a sundress to me. It was kind of like a satin like just like shiny, pretty white dress. Yeah. She was beaming in every single picture. Even though the guest list was small, you could tell that they were just like really happy. For some reason, only Brad's brother attended from his side, but all of Nancy's immediate family was there and a couple of their friends came to celebrate. Okay. And it seemed like it was an amazing celebration. So after the wedding, they moved out to Cary, North Carolina, which apparently is one of the most safest cities in America. So if you live there, like, congratulations.
Hey, good for you.
Get it in your safe.
That's awesome.
Cary
Continue
place.
being safe.
Do it.
That's awesome for you.
Safety.
Yes.
Unfortunately, though, things didn't really go as swimmingly as Nancy had hoped. She didn't have a visa, like I said, so she wasn't able to work in the U.S., and Brad was supposed to be working on that, so hopefully she was going to be eventually. But at that point, she had to pretty much depend on Brad for whatever she wanted, and her family was like, she was not that kind of girl.
I was going to say, and if you're just not, like, somebody comfortable with that, then that's, like, torturous.
Exactly, and basically that's exactly how it was for her. She wanted to make her own money. She didn't want to have to ask her husband for something. Like, that's just not the relationship that she was interested in.
Yeah, she just wasn't comfortable with that arrangement.
No. And she was also really bored because she didn't really know anybody around there. She couldn't get a job. So she was like, what the hell am I supposed to do all day?
I know.
And she was just like unhappy a lot of the time. So by Christmas time, 2002, she was talking to her family during a visit out back in Canada. I almost just said out in Canada.
Out in Canada.
Out in Canada.
Out there.
I mean, that applies to like
out there yonder.
But she was telling them that she was really miserable and that she didn't even want to go back to Cary with Brad.
Oh.
And I guess he wasn't with her on this trip. Now, they heard what she was saying because they said like their relationship had never been perfect, but also at the same time, whose relationship is perfect? Say. So they were like, you know, and a lot of times, like in the first couple of years, people do run into like kind of like newlyweds. It's stressful, I guess. I don't know that personally, but it can be. So I've heard.
I guess it can be, yeah.
Yeah, for some people. So they were just like, okay, maybe they're just kind of hitting like a bump in the road here.
Yeah.
And her sister Jill was like, you know, you decided to marry him. This is your husband. You should try to make it work. And at that point, Brad himself came out to Edmonton and he convinced Nancy to go home with him. So she agreed, and things seemed to get better with time. She was able to make some friends around town. She actually had like a really great group of friends. She was able to get a car of her own, and she actually started nannying so that she could make some cash while she was out there. So everything that she was kind of upset about in the beginning definitely turned around for her.
Starting to be remedied.
Exactly. Now, she and Brad welcomed their first daughter in February of 2004, and then in 2006, they had another daughter. I'm not going to say the kids' names because it doesn't really need to happen. But by 2008, they were right back to where they started when they first moved. So 2004 to 2006 was like a really happy time. And then 2 years after that, it was like everything was starting back up again.
Oh, no. And when you have the stress of like kids
and newborns,
like, small kids, like toddlers and stuff, and you're already not doing well together, I imagine that's not going to help matters.
No, definitely not. And like, imagine having like a 2-year-old and a newborn.
Yeah, and it's like that's either going to bring you closer together as a team and show you what you're made of, or it's going to pull you right apart if there's already cracks in it, it's going to pull you right apart.
And there was a really, really big crack because Nancy's friend confessed to her one night that she had been sleeping with Brad. Her friend.
What?
Had been sleeping with her husband.
I am not one to condone violence, but if my friend sat in front of me and said, I've been your husband.
That's not your friend, first of all. And like, what do you expect someone to say? Like, I literally have been sleeping with your husband.
To like want to hit you. I don't understand that. Like, I would want to hit my friend.
How could you not? Like,
I don't know how, like.
And then I would like to go to my husband and be like, yeah, like, bye.
And then literally go to your husband and be like, get out of my house immediately and never talk to me again, except that it's the father of your children.
So
you are now tied to that person for life. Like, what?
You're tied to that person for life, and you're in like a foreign place that you can't get out of.
I'm like so irrationally angry for somebody I haven't even met.
No,
like,
but I don't blame you. I felt like, the same way. Her friend.
As a friend, and it's like,
because it's not your friend.
How does a quote unquote friend do that to somebody? And then how does your husband go to your friend and do that? Like, there's so much betrayal, so many layers of betrayal there that I can't even sift through them properly to like think of a response.
Oh, it only gets worse.
No.
Yeah, it only gets worse. So like, prepare yourself to be very angry, because he not only had cheated on her, at this point he was also becoming like super controlling and like very possessive, which like,
that's what cheaters do.
It also just makes no sense, because why are you possessive of me when you clearly don't care about me?
Welcome to being cheated on, where that you have no idea what's going on,
right?
Because somebody is acting like they first of all, they make it feel like you cheated on them, they're acting like you cheated on them, because they're so possessive and obsessive. Because, like, trust me, like, my ex cheated on me horrifically. Yes. And I remember being like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not doing anything. I don't understand this. And as soon as I found out, I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's like projection. Why.
It's a total projection, because they know they're doing it. So they're like, well, there's nothing to say that they won't if I'm doing all this horrible stuff. And it's a nasty thing to do. So it's
all consuming.
Yeah, and it also is just like next to nasty behavior. It's just like more nasty behavior.
Yeah, you're just like rolling in nasty.
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm bitter.
You have every right to be.
I'm just kidding.
But so she confronted him, obviously, and he told her that there was no relationship with this woman at all, because this woman literally was like, I'm having an affair with your husband. And he was like, no, there's no relationship. He's like, so throughout counseling sessions, at that point, they decided to go to counseling. He admitted that this was a full-blown affair. Not only that, but that he was in love with her friend. Literally was like, basically tried to make her think that it was a one-night stand, and then was like, actually, it's not, and I'm in love with your friend.
Actually, it's not a one-night stand. I'm actually fully in love with her.
I have a totally another life.
You have 2 children, 2 young babies with this man, and he is now telling you that not only has he cheated on you with your friend, but he is now in love with that. I'd brain also literally will not wrap around this.
I would look at him and be like, you're not in love with her because clearly you don't know what love is.
You don't know what love is.
Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Like, my brain can't even fathom this.
No.
That's horrific.
And she's like away from all of her
nightmare.
support system other than like the new friends that she's made.
That's
and then
awful.
She's probably questioning all of her friendships at this point, because if this lady can do that to you, like, that you must just be so in such a state of shock and just like distrust for everyone around you.
Well, two of the most important people, your friend and your husband, have
lied to you,
completely shattered your trust. Who do you turn to in that situation?
No. And before she had realized that it was like a full-blown affair, she was like, maybe I'll try to make this work because we have these children together.
Yeah, that's gotta play into it.
But once she found out that this was like a full-ass affair, she was like, no, I'm literally done.
Yeah, once you say I'm in love with her, okay.
I'm in love with her and all these other things that we're going to find out later that were going on. She was like, no, like this, I'm out. Now, later in a deposition, Brad admitted that the first time he slept with this woman, and in the deposition, he said it only happened once, but apparently in therapy, he had said otherwise. But in this deposition, he said that the one time they slept together was in the master closet, in the master bedroom of him and Nancy's home.
Oh my God.
Who does
what
that?
What a disgusting piece of garbage.
Like in your wife's home, in her, like where her clothes are. Gross. And like, what kind of friend are you? Yeah, you don't know what friendship is.
Two gross people.
It's horrific.
And you don't accidentally someone, man. Like, come on.
No.
Like,
so when divorce was initially brought to the table as an option, it seemed like Brad was open to it, which why would you not be? Because you're sitting here telling me you don't love me.
You don't have a whole lot of leg to stand on, buddy.
No. Nancy had even started packing up her and the kids' things and was planning just to take them back with her to Alberta with her family because she was like, this.
Yeah, bye.
So she'd contacted a lawyer and they were beginning to see what the divorce would look like, how it would all play out in different aspects, especially what their custody agreement would look like and how much Brad was most likely going to be paying in child support. Once he saw that information, he told Nancy the move was off. She couldn't move anymore. She literally had like their things like boxed up and ready to go. And Nancy at that point realized that this was just going to be a full-blown battle. So she started locking personal and important papers in her car so that Brad wouldn't have access to them. She also had locked her and the kids' passports in the car if they ever needed to get away. And at this point, she told people that she was sleeping in a locked room with the kids with the keys in her pocket. So obviously there was a lot more going on here.
I am so horrified for her and those children.
It's the saddest thing ever. Now, somehow, one day, Brad actually was able to get into her car and took one of their daughter's passports so that she wouldn't be able to go back to Canada. And how is that? He was like, I'll leave two of them, but you're going to have to leave without one of our kids. You're going to have to leave
one of our kids behind. Like, what did
a horrible person.
This guy.
Now, at this point, he was also listening in on her phone calls. So he was just like one step ahead of everything. And the thing is, she would have never left one of the kids there. She wouldn't have left either of the kids there. It was her and the kids leaving, and that was that.
Yeah.
So she tried to talk to a lawyer about everything that was going on, but obviously Brad's listening to her phone calls, so it's super difficult. And the lawyer ended up telling her that she really shouldn't leave the house anyway, because if she did, she could lose everything. And she wasn't going to, but he was like, just so you know, if you do leave without the kids, even if you have the intent of getting them eventually, if you leave without them, you really do risk losing custody altogether.
Yeah.
So she was...
no option.
Like, stuck isn't even the word. There's not even a
literally
word for
optionless.
Like, she had nowhere to go.
Oh, honestly, I feel anxiety thinking about how horrific this situation is because it's just from all angles.
You just have nowhere to go, and you're devastated, like, because your friend has betrayed you. You're devastated because your husband has betrayed you. You're clearly afraid for you and your children's safety if you're like sleeping in a locked room with the keys in your pocket.
So cute.
They're adorable. So Nancy's family knew some of the details about what was going on. They knew that Brad was listening on the calls, though, so Nancy wasn't able to tell them everything. Like, she couldn't tell them exactly what was going on.
Oh my God, this is just like horrible in every sense.
It is. And they knew, her family knew about that, and they knew about the passport that he'd taken. But they didn't really think that he was capable of much worse. And they thought his behavior just had a lot to do with the fact that this was a nasty divorce. And
yeah, you're never, ever going to consider that someone could do
course
anything.
not.
Someone that you're married to. You know, that's
Right.
You don't think that.
But just to be sure that his daughter felt safe, her father, Gary, point blank asked Nancy, he was like, "Are you in fear of your safety?" And she said that she wasn't. But he was like, I had to ask her.
Yeah, of course.
So that was
And
a
it's like,
relief.
but what is she can't say it.
Right, exactly.
Because she was probably thinking, is that just going to set someone off and then something terrible is going to happen?
Exactly. And she, even if she doesn't feel safe, she still has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Like, her lawyer was like, you can't leave. Like, you
can't
can,
leave.
but it's not going to play out well for
Yeah.
you. So he was relieved that his daughter at least felt safe, he thought. But they were still really worried, and they felt horrible that Nancy was going through all of this
Yeah.
alone. So that summer, in July of 2008, all of her family came down to North Carolina for a visit.
Oh,
They
because
just
I was
came down
going to say,
visit her.
they must feel so helpless.
Yeah.
Up in Canada. Mm-hmm. Like, so far away.
Right.
Oh,
And you think, like, when she left, they thought that this was what she wanted, and it was what she wanted.
this was
like,
all for a happy ending.
and
you
it was,
know?
it seemed like everything in the beginning was gonna just,
Yeah.
they were gonna have this happy life together. They were moving to a beautiful suburb, and they were having kids, and then it all really just came like crashing down so fast. And they were horrified and just like so deeply sad to see the condition that their daughter and their sister was in. They were used to this like bright, bubbly, confident, happy daughter and sister, and now the person that was with them, they said, was like a shell of herself. Like, it wasn't even her.
That's so sad.
So Nancy and Brad obviously
And
were
these poor
separated.
kids, like-
yeah, oh yeah, like, because kids feed off of that
Oh, for
too.
sure.
They know all about like what's going on even when we don't think they do.
Oh, yeah. They pick up on vibes hugely.
So at this point, obviously Nancy and Brad are separated, but they were still living in the same house, and Brad was treating her terribly. So Nancy's family was like, we have to do something to help her. So they spoke with their own lawyer, and they were trying to figure out if there was a way that they could get Nancy and the kids out of the house. Maybe they could buy out Brad's share, but they were kind of just in the mode of trying to figure it out.
Like, wheels are just spinning at this
Right,
point.
there's no real solution happening. And before she left, Nancy's mom, Donna, was already figuring out a way to come back and help. Like, she was like, I'm going to come back. I'm going to help you. We're going to figure this out.
Oh, these poor parents.
And when that July vacation was over, Nancy brought her parents to the airport, and her mom said that she like clung to her as she was leaving and just said, Mom, I just want to go home.
Oh, my God. Rip my heart out.
Which I literally, like, I have goosebumps right now. Like, all you want is your mom, and you just want to go home. Like
you just want to get away from this garbage.
Yeah.
Human.
That you thought loved you, and you realize that he's just incapable of love.
Oh my God, that's like so sad. I just like feel so bad for her parents. Oh,
For everyone, the whole situation is just horrible.
That's just horrific.
Now, unfortunately, that was going to be the last time that Nancy's family saw her alive. I think we very clearly could see where this was headed.
Oh, this guy.
6 days later, on July 12th, Nancy was supposed to be meeting up with a couple of her friends that morning. Most of them had actually been together at a barbecue the night before, right across the street from Nancy and Brad's house. And before they all left, they confirmed their plans. So these plans were solidified. This woman, Jessica, who Nancy was friends with, was expecting Nancy to come over to her house around 8 a.m. She was actually helping her paint so that she could get some extra money, because Brad at this point had like cut off her allowance.
Yeah.
Her allowance, which is the most ridiculous thing. But Nancy never showed up. And Jessica knew right away that something was off with the situation, because Nancy wasn't the kind of person to just like no call, no show. And she also knew that Nancy and Brad were having marriage problems, so she was freaked out.
Yeah.
And especially because the night before at the barbecue, Nancy and Brad were there together with the kids. Brad went home early with the kids, and Nancy stayed until around midnight, and she was just really venting to her friends about how bad things had gotten and how much she was just growing to like really hate Brad. Oof. And there was a woman there who would later testify at Nancy's murder trial. This woman said that she had just met Nancy that night, but she remembered a lot of the things that Nancy was opening up about. And she said she remembered driving home that night and telling her husband that she was worried for this woman.
Wow.
And she barely knew her.
Wow.
And she said, she was like, something bad is going to happen at that house, because she said, like, she just kept seeing Nancy looking back at the house and looking to her. And she was like, I just felt like something really bad was going to happen there.
Oh.
And like, imagine later, like, you look back on that night and you're like, I knew that was going to happen.
Like, I
and
felt that.
Now I'm sitting here at this
Talking
woman
about it.
was murdered. Like, that's horrific.
Ugh.
So Jessica and another friend of Nancy's called Heather, who also had plans with her that morning, were really starting to freak out. And it didn't help that when they called Brad, he would barely give them any information.
Of course not. He's a garbage person.
He just said that Nancy had gone out for a jog, which wasn't weird because she was actually training for a half marathon because she was amazing. But he wasn't clear on what time she had left. And by then it was 10 o'clock. And they were like, he said like, oh, she left around like 6 or 7. Like, it's like, those are 2 different times.
Yeah, those are 2 very different times.
You know when your wife leaves, especially if you're taking care of the kids. Like,
I was just going to say, you have 2 tiny children.
Yeah, you know what time it is.
You know every second that the other parent is out of the house. You know
Exactly.
how long they've been gone.
So it was Jessica who called 911 when Brad actually called her a little bit later and said Nancy still wasn't back. So her friend called 911. He called her, and the friend was like, yeah, I'm going to call because something's not right here. Well, it's like, that's weird. He never called the police.
Of course not.
So Jessica told the operator that her friend Nancy was going through a divorce and now she was missing. Brad never even called Nancy's family. Never even called her family.
No, of course he didn't.
So immediately
Not
this
shocked.
case was all over the news because, like I said, Carrie was a really safe place. Like nothing like this had really happened there before.
Yeah.
And Nancy, like, it's kind of like the all-American thing. Like,
Yeah, and it's like if she just went out jogging and then didn't come back, people are
Right.
like, well, who is that?
exactly.
Is there like a prowler outside?
That is exactly like what the air was full of at
Yeah.
that point. And as soon as the news made it back to Alberta, Nancy's family was on the first plane out there.
Oh, they probably all the stomach
They knew immediately.
drops that must have happened when that phone call was made is just like you just know.
Because her father had literally said to her mother, this situation isn't going to have a pretty outcome. When the divorce was happening.
And to feel like you have no and, like obviously I don't know this family, I don't know these parents, but I just like as parents, you must be to feel so out of control.
You just feel helpless.
To keep your child safe no matter how old they are.
That's
I
your
can't
child.
imagine
That's
how
your-
that must feel.
That's your baby no matter what.
Yeah, and it's like you can't keep them safe. Like
Right.
you have no control over it. Some peace monster man way far away, like hundreds of thousands of miles away, has control over the situation and you don't.
Yeah, I can't imagine that feeling.
Every parent's nightmare.
It is.
Every
parent's
family
nightmare.
member's nightmare. Her twin sister.
So her twin
I can't
sister
imagine her either.
is a badass. She called Brad that day and
Hell
said,
yeah, she did.
She goes, what have you done? Where is she? Everybody knew immediately, and she never got an answer from Brad.
And her poor twin, like that.
That's a
That's
special
a
kind of
different
connection.
Like of course, like a sister bond is like nothing you can even talk about. But twin, I can't imagine.
No. And there's
just something with twins.
There is.
There
and
really is.
There's a Dateline episode, and there's like a memorial service that's happening, and she's talking about how they're twins and how special that is. I started crying.
Yeah.
There's so many twins in our family.
There is, yeah.
And just like the connection I felt to this story. And she said, it like makes me want to cry.
I know, I can see it in your eyes.
I know. She said, whenever I have to remember her, all I have to do is look in the mirror.
Oh.
And it just, something about that sentence just ruined me. Like I was like,
Because I mean, I have sisters who are twins. My mom's a twin. I have twins.
Yup.
The connection is undeniable.
absolutely.
Undeniable. They know. Like, they know when the other one isn't feeling well. They
Yeah.
know they can feel something when the other one feels it. There is something. It's not like as crazy in your face as like, people will make it like, stories will make it. But
Yeah.
it's like, it's always this thing. Like, they just always know with the other one. And I've seen it with my own twins. It's like,
yeah.
they are so connected on such a different level.
I mean, they literally came into the universe together.
Yeah.
Like that's something special.
They hung out in the womb together.
like that's
They
it.
were
They
womb
developed
mates.
together.
Yeah.
All of
It's
the
just something.
developmental steps they did at the same time. Like,
So whenever I see like, twins and one of
hits
them is,
home.
especially when one of them is like murdered or goes missing, there's just something you can tell. It's like a piece of the other one has just been ripped out.
because it's just a different kind
Yeah.
of hurt.
Yeah. It makes me so sad.
But when she said that, I was like,
yeah.
that was so heavy. But so she never got an answer from Brad. He never told her. But 2 days later, she found out where her sister was, where her twin was. Nancy's body was found 2 days after Jessica had reported her missing. A man was actually walking his dog, and he saw her body laying face down in a storm drain. It was near an undeveloped subdivision, and it was about 3 miles from her own home.
Oh, dude.
Now, the only reason that this man noticed her, like, she may have been there for longer if he hadn't been out there walking, because he noticed vultures circling in the area and, like, took a closer look.
Oh.
Which is absolutely haunting and just horrible.
The haunting is the exact word.
Now, when Nancy's body was brought in to be autopsied, the autopsy was able to show that she had been strangled, and she had been in such a tight chokehold that one of the bones in her neck was broken.
The force that takes.
I just like...
And that is such a personal way to kill someone.
Absolutely.
And for you're killing your wife.
Yeah.
The mother of your children.
Obviously, we know he did it.
Like, what?
Yeah, I just had to take a deep breath because thinking about the force that it takes, like your neck, those are thick bones, dude.
Yeah, they're
like,
supposed to hold your whole head up.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be pretty hefty.
To break somebody's neck and like the person who literally
and
gave
to be
life
looking
to your
into
children.
somebody's eyes and doing that, the terror you're going to be watching in someone's eyes, that's horrible.
Although I wonder if he even did look in her eyes because we might find out something later.
Huh.
He's a coward. But when she was discovered, she only had on a sports bra and diamond earrings. I read in one source that only one of her diamond earrings was still in, but when they found her, it didn't seem like this was like some kind of robbery or anything.
Oh, okay.
So they were like, her earrings were still there.
Okay.
But there were no signs of assault, and there were no signs of trauma to her body other than the
Strangulation.
neck and strangulation. So immediately the investigators were like really perplexed by this because it didn't seem to be a robbery. The crime wasn't motivated. And
if it was like a stranger who like attacked her while jogging, they would probably hit her over the head or something like that. And
right.
They're not just going to run up and suddenly start strangling. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it just was very strange.
Seems like she would have to be close to the person voluntarily for that kind of injury to occur.
Exactly. Now, the news of Nancy's death was obviously heartbreaking to her family. And then, to add salt to the wound, they were finding out all different kinds of things about their son-in-law. It turned out he had never applied for Nancy's work visa.
Oh, I knew it.
He put her in that position so that she had to depend on him.
I had a feeling.
He wanted her to be in that position that she totally hated, having to ask him for whatever she needed. Oh, and it only gets worse. The year leading up to Nancy's death, I can't imagine what this woman was going through. This was absolutely the worst year of her life and the worst year of their marriage, obviously. He controlled every single aspect, especially financially. And once somebody gains financial control of your life, it's over.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very hard to get out of that.
At that point, I can't even imagine. And it's terrifying the things that they're capable of doing at that point.
Yeah.
Nancy was trying to make money quietly by selling her clothes or, like I mentioned before, helping a friend paint her house. But all that money was going to groceries for the kids because Brad didn't even care enough to give her money for that at that point. He actually lowered her weekly allowance, quote unquote, when he found out that she was painting Jessica's house and being paid for it.
Oh, to buy food for their kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Totally. Not a demon at all.
And Jessica said she remembered a lot of tension surrounding that project, and she had been around Brad afterwards, and he had like either made comments or like made faces at her about it. And she was like, the whole situation was just very uncomfortable.
Her friends must have wanted to drop kick this guy at all times.
Oh, at all times.
At all times.
And one of Nancy's other friends even remembered her calling Brad and telling him that she only had $2 and that they were out of diapers. Like having to call your husband and be like, I don't have money and our kids don't have diapers. And like, he didn't give a...
Oh my God. I hate this guy so much.
What did he care?
I have such a rage.
He wasn't even home.
No,
he
he doesn't give a
busy
shit.
cheating on her.
Yeah.
Now, when he was home, it was so that he was the one to put in gas in Nancy's car. He would intentionally put a limited amount of gas in her car so that she could only travel as far as he wanted her to.
Oh.
Not only that,
This is horrific.
he, like I said, was listening in on her calls, and by that point, he had also hacked into her email. So anything she was planning to do to better her life and get away from him, he was always one step ahead of her. There was no escaping him.
No.
He had everything right at his fingertips.
And she couldn't even go to like I mean, she probably felt like she couldn't even go to the police or anything like that because she would have to have her kids with her because who knows what would happen.
Exactly. She was helpless at that point.
Terror.
What was she going to do?
Yeah.
He was everywhere and he was nowhere all at the same time.
Which was nowhere he needed to be and everywhere he didn't need to be.
And thankfully, he did not do himself any favors during this investigation.
Good.
Immediately, suspicion landed on him. And in my personal belief, it's not just because he was the husband. It's because he was being a weirdo about this stuff.
It's because he's the worst human?
Yes. His lawyers actually had to hold a press conference about the case where they addressed the fact that he literally wasn't even showing up to the memorial services being held for her. Or any kind of event to bring awareness to the case. He went to like one in the beginning and his actions and words there, it was just like very detached. Like he was like, please somebody let us know where she is. Like I want my wife to come home.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you really sound like it. But they told the public, Brad Cooper is a very private man. I wonder why. And then they went on to say, he's not accustomed to the hot glare of the media spotlight. He never dreamed that he would see his face splashed across television news shows, nor his name in headlines, especially not under these terrible circumstances. Different people grieve in different ways, and Mr. Cooper wishes to mourn privately.
And it's like, okay, that's fine if he wants to like not say a lot.
But he can be present.
And like mourn and all that. Like I'm not telling anyone they can't. They have to sit in front of a camera and grieve.
And,
like by no means, because I am 100% one of those people who if you put a camera in my face when I'm grieving, I'm just walking away. Like I'm not going to say it. But it's like if your wife is, first of all, if your wife is missing and you are fine, then shove a camera in my face. I'm going to be screaming from the rooftops, find my husband. Like, you know what I mean? Like that would be the time when I get rid of all my own like any discomfort I have.
Because you wouldn't even think of it.
Because I just want my husband
Because
back.
exactly, your love for him would flush that out immediately.
So it's like you can't use the everyone mourns differently. No, if you really wanted your significant other back, then you scream it and you go find ways to find that person.
And if then when her body was discovered, you're wondering who just like who's out in your community. And like you're not scared. Like you have 2 daughters. What if they're targeting you? Yeah. Like you would think that you'd be a little more present at
least being like, if anybody knows something, like come forward. Like you'd be at least being like, of course I don't want to sit here and give a full length interview. Like, but I will happily sit there and be like, what is going on? If anybody has information, you have to at least. I mean, you're even as a human, like just you should care.
Right.
Like people grieve in different ways, yes, but you should be caring. Like it should be evident that you care. Yeah, like it should be at least a little evident that you care.
Yeah,
like
it was not at all evident.
Exactly.
Like maybe like a tinge of evident in the first like little thing that he said,
but
like
it was just gone.
Barely.
Yeah.
And luckily the district attorney, Howard Cummings, he shared my same feelings. He did not think that Brad was mourning anything at all, and he took specific note of the fact that Brad Cooper hadn't even been the one to call the police about his missing wife.
Yeah, that's a big problem.
Never told her family and never asked for any case updates about who could have been responsible for this.
Yeah, red flag.
And again, like I said, you have 2 daughters. What if you're being targeted? Like you're going to want to know some case updates, I would think.
Like that's their mother.
Yeah.
Like
ridiculous. But unfortunately, they didn't have any physical evidence to go off of, and people in the area who didn't think Brad was responsible thought that Nancy could have been snatched up when she was running that morning. But like we were saying, when you think about it, the manner of death really doesn't make sense for that scenario.
It doesn't line up.
But there were some eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen her out that morning. One woman was like absolutely sure that she saw Nancy, and she said that it was like the distinct features of her face. She was like, I know it was her. But we've talked all about eyewitnesses before, and it's not very reliable.
Yes, we have.
Get things up most of
the
the time.
Can be more harm than good.
Exactly. And another man who ended up testifying later, he said that he had seen Nancy and got a 30-second look at her, which I was like, that's not even very long, my guy. Like, it's not a long time. Are you going to stare at something for 30 seconds? Maybe I guess for a person. Long. But still.
Yeah.
I don't think he did. He said he also saw a van do a U-turn to follow her.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There was a lot of mention about suspicious vans in the area when it came to the people that didn't believe Brad had done this. But investigators really didn't find a lot following that lead.
Okay.
Now, 2 months after Nancy's murder, no one had been charged. And that October, Brad was actually giving a deposition, like I mentioned earlier. as part of a custody battle with Nancy's parents. And is because as soon as they found out what had happened to Nancy, they all knew that Brad was responsible. And they were like, we had never seen him treat the kids poorly. Like, we never saw anything to make us believe that he would harm them. But if he was in a state of mind where he could have potentially done this to our daughter and our sister,
what's to say he won't snap? And
that's exactly what they said.
And
like,
hurt
exactly.
those kids.
Right. And they were really worried about that too. So they filed the paperwork just one day after Nancy was found.
I want them to have those kids.
Don't worry, they do.
Okay.
They
were. Please tell me they have those kids.
They were granted temporary custody because the judge working this specific case didn't say anything about being suspicious of Brad committing the murder, because at that point they hadn't really figured anything out yet. But he or she was very focused on the fact that it was definitely on its way to trial, and the stress enough would like be a lot to affect those kids. So they needed to be away from it.
Yeah.
So luckily they were able to take care of the girls.
I'm glad.
Now, during the deposition, Brad, all he did was try to tarnish Nancy's name, and all while glancing down at his wedding ring and fiddling with it. Which, again, haunting.
Yeah.
He tried to say that she was the one who spent too much money, that her credit card had the higher amount of debt attached to it, which I was like, you could have literally just done that yourself. Like,
yeah.
Doesn't sound like she had it.
And also, I'm just like, okay.
And like, maybe she had to buy stuff for your kids if you weren't, like, that costs money.
Yeah, maybe she had to put everything on the credit card.
Yeah, exactly. And he said that is why he started her allowance in the first place. And he claimed that the allowance was plenty of money. It was $300 a week.
Dude, financial stuff. It's
also, when you have children, like, that is very expensive. I could see how $300 would go quickly with two children,
it does.
Two babies,
It does.
diapers, formula, groceries, clothing.
Oh yeah, and with babies,
jackets, car seats,
diapers alone are so expensive,
and formula, like literally just the things that babies need to like be sheltered and cared for,
to like the basic necessities, like wipes, diapers, like clothing, everything, like stuff to bathe them. Like it's a really expensive gig, and it's like, you gotta be on a good, I say this all the time, I'm like, financial stuff will ruin you as a couple if you don't figure it out ahead of time. Mm-hmm. It's just like it's so crazy how it's such an evil force,
because money can ruin
marriages,
friendships.
Oh, it can ruin everything.
People, like a ton of stuff.
Every relationship, money can ruin.
Mm-hmm.
Any relationship.
Easily.
It's root of all evil.
Other than Brad, because I think he's the root of all evil. He also said that she was a drinker. He complained that she was never happy with anything, which I was like, why would she be if she was married to you? And also, you're talking about a woman that was murdered.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, okay, I don't like, maybe you guys weren't right for each other. It's very clear. Maybe neither one of you were happy at all.
But you don't need to shit all over her.
But it's like,
well, she's
murdered. Like, she's the murdered mother of your child. I don't care if you don't think she was happy with anything. Like, that's done now. And so just like, what are you doing?
Does it make any difference here?
Well, that's what
like. What do those things
not ringing as like I'm like, why are you even talking about this?
Right.
Like, why is this even something you're bringing up? Mm-hmm. She's dead. She's been murdered horrifically.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't understand it.
Now, at some point or another in that deposition, he told them that he had never even been to the place where Nancy's body was found.
Did he himself over with that?
Very important for later, but for now, I have to move on to something else.
All right.
So in October,
he gave that little tidbit.
He had never been there.
Voluntarily.
Never even been there.
Nope, never been
once. Now, on October 27th, 2008, the Cary police chief, Pat Bazemore, I believe is how you say it, announced to the public that Brad Cooper had officially been charged with first-degree murder.
I wonder why.
Yeah, because he is just really not hiding it well.
Yeah, it's so subtly guilty.
Now, annoyingly enough, it would be another year and a half before the case went to trial in March 2011. I'm always like, why does it take so long?
Everything's so slow.
It is. Now, Brad's lawyer submitted a motion that the trial be held in another city so that they wouldn't run into any biases in the jury. But at that point, I had said earlier, Nancy's case was national news.
Yeah, that's what tends to happen in these things. It's like they want to move it out of the area, and it's like
anywhere you go.
Do you want to move it to Saturn? Like, you're not, no one, like, you're not going to
move it to Saturn. Would you like a jury of aliens?
Like, that you're not going to find anyone here who doesn't give it.
Right, exactly. Like, people tend to get mad when murdered mothers turn up.
Yeah,
and you're acting weird. But the application was denied, needless to say.
Yeah, because they were probably like, that won't work.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. They were like, you're not going to find a place where there's no bias in this case. But the prosecution, I cannot speak. The prosecution suggested that what had happened was that Brad had come home early from that barbecue, which we knew he did.
Yes.
And he had put the children to sleep in a room, or like put them in a room so that they wouldn't see anything. Ugh. And then he either grabbed Nancy from behind when she came in the room, which is why I said he didn't even look her in the eyes, maybe, or that he began to choke her while she was sleeping. That's what they surmised. Now, once he was certain that she was dead, they said he drove her to the spot where she was discovered. And he had said before in the deposition that he'd never seen that spot, like I said.
Huh.
That was like super duper weird though, because the FBI happened to find evidence on his computer that he searched for that specific area at 1:15 in the afternoon the day before Nancy was killed.
What an actual dumbass, and I'm so happy for it.
Literally typed in the zip code, zoomed into that area on Google Maps, zoomed into it at 1:15 in the afternoon the day before he killed her, and knew that he was going to put her there.
Yikes.
I'd never been there. Like, yikes. Yeah, you've never been there physically, but you've been there on Google Mapsidly.
Why are you looking for it? Like, why are you specifically looking at this area, but you've never been there?
He zoomed in on it.
And I'm honestly willing to bet that he did do it while she was sleeping, just because there was no other injuries, like fighting injuries or anything. And I think she was caught off guard completely. Because even if it was from behind, I feel like there would be some kind of...
Yeah, I agree with you. I could totally see that.
It's just horrific in all ways.
It really is. And they theorized that when he got home from dumping her body, he cleaned the house and the car, washed her clothes, and made a fake phone call to make it seem like she was still alive. Now, there were dozens of witnesses at the trial, so many that all of their testimonies took 36 days to get through.
Oh my God.
And it made it the longest and most expensive trial in the history of Wake County.
Wow.
Crazy. Now, the defense brought forward a man who claimed to have slept with Nancy while she was married, because they were trying to show that the infidelity wasn't only on Brad's part, and they were basically just also trying to tarnish her name.
It's also like, none of this
does matter.
It's like you had that's a terrible marriage, first of all, and she was murdered.
Right.
That doesn't give anyone the right to murder her.
Exactly.
Like, just divorce.
And now that I'm thinking of it, it's like, why would you bring that forward? Because realistically, that would only prove that like he was even angrier at her. So that's even more motive if that didn't even happen. Like,
yeah,
that was just a stupid move.
You just bring it up to try to tarnish her, a dead woman. That's okay.
Now, they also argued that the evidence on Brad's computer had been planted, though they couldn't say by who.
I was just gonna say, by who?
Yeah.
Who planted that very specific evidence on his computer?
Basically, and if you watch the Dateline, one of his lawyers is interviewed, and he is just basically saying that the police did it without saying that, because he's a lawyer and he knows how to talk around things. But I was like,
I hope he stretched before that reach.
You should have, because you definitely strained yourself.
You could pull a damn muscle.
I hope you pulled
Esquire.
all of them. But the prosecution had a member of the FBI testify that they had seen no evidence of tampering with Brad's computer.
Yeah, the FIBA is like, no.
The FIBI is like, I think I know what I'm doing here.
I don't think that's
It is worth mentioning that the his defense lawyers tried to bring in like 2 expert witnesses in computer things, and the judge said no to it, because the FBI had already said like it didn't happen.
Yeah, like a pretty like unbiased entity, like in this whole situation.
And I guess one of the people that they were trying to bring forward, the judge was like, they're not even qualified to talk about that.
It's like in the West Memphis 3 case when they tried to bring in all these quote unquote experts, and they were like, hey, do you have a degree? And he's like, nah.
He's like, just one that I printed off this internet page.
One time I read the word demon, and so I think I'm pretty much a demonologist now. And like and the judge was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, expert.
Luckily, this judge was like, that's not an expert.
I'm glad.
And then the other witness that they tried to bring forward, it was like too late in the game. So basically he was like, just stop. Like, it's not working.
Yeah.
Now, Brad, in the beginning of things, had said that the morning that Nancy went out jogging, he went to the store twice at some point. Which I was like, why'd you go to the store twice? But like, I don't know, maybe he forgot something. And he said that on the way back, he had talked to Nancy on the phone. So when the defense talked about the phone call Brad had made to Nancy the morning she had been killed, they thought that would prove that he couldn't have killed her, because they were on the phone,
records,
right, as she had been killed. The prosecution, however, was aware of what Brad's job was. He was a computer whiz, And again, one of the few people in his line of work merging internet and phone technology.
Yeah.
And there was evidence that he had signed a certain kind of router out of work and he had never returned it. This particular router would have made it possible for him to schedule a phone call on his computer to Nancy's phone at any point in time for any duration that he'd like.
What? How is that even a thing?
Because the computer is scary.
Yeah, that is scary.
It's scary that there are people out there that can do whatever they want on your computer.
That's really scary.
It absolutely is. So yeah, they were like, he could have done that like easily.
Did they have a time of death like during the autopsy? Where they could determine whether it was night or the following morning?
I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, because I was going to say, somebody should be able to just immediately disqualify the morning jog.
Yeah, that's true.
But maybe not.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't mentioned in anything I saw.
Honestly, she was found 2 days later.
And face down in water.
Yeah, I totally forgot about how many days later. So that would definitely be hard to determine that small amount of hours.
Yeah, probably just like fuck everything up. But so the whole thing with the router was that he had signed that out of work and that they knew what that router was capable of. He had never returned it and it was missing from the home when they searched the home. So that's like a fucking smoking gun. Now, they also found evidence on the computer that showed he was lying when he had originally said that he went to bed when he got home from the barbecue. He said he put the kids to bed and he went to bed, and he and the kids were both asleep around like 9 o'clock. That was like really weird though, because he was up on the computer until like literally the time that Nancy came home.
And as a computer whiz, he should have known that this was all going to be able to be found.
One would think. In addition to that, one of his former girlfriends came forward and filed an affidavit calling him emotionally abusive and mentally cruel. In this affidavit, she wrote, quote, "I never before and have never again been in a relationship with someone who treated me so poorly." Oh. She also said that things got so bad in their relationship that she feared for her personal safety toward the end.
I feel so bad for her.
That's everything you need to know there.
Yeah, like there it is.
So when the jury came back, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty of first-degree murder. And with that, Brad Cooper was sentenced to life in prison.
Good, and those kids get to stay with the grandparents.
They're actually with Krista.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mentioned it later.
I'm glad.
But we're not done yet. In 2013, Brad's lawyers appealed his conviction on the grounds that the judge during the first trial wouldn't allow them the witnesses that they wanted to testify about the tampering with the computer. Again, a member of the FBI testified that there was no evidence of tampering, so I feel like that sufficed, but apparently not. And he was granted a new trial. Now, instead of going through an actual trial, he took a plea deal, which Nancy's family was really happy about and supported, because at that point they just didn't want to go through all of this again. The girls were older; they already knew what was going on. It just didn't need to get any further than it already had. And it must just be so much emotional torture hearing about your murdered child in the way that the prosecution wants to talk about, or the defense wants to talk about them, and then just to find out about things that were going on.
Because that's the thing, it's the defense is going to sit there and try to tear them down. So it's you're going to have to sit there and not be able to react.
Right.
While someone tears down your murdered child, their legacy, you know what I mean?
Or you're going to get kicked out of the courtroom.
Or making lies, or trying to prove that this man that treated her horribly is actually this great man and was a great father and a great husband, and you're sitting there being like, no, he wasn't.
Right. I know this personally.
Yeah, it must be so infuriating.
Exactly. So luckily they were supportive of the plea deal, but it wasn't a great one. Brad ended up pleading guilty to second-degree murder this time, and as a result, he got 12 to 15 years in prison. What? One of the biggest points, however, in the plea deal was that Brad gave up parental rights to his two daughters and would never be allowed to contact them.
Good.
And like I said, Nancy's twin sister, Krista, ended up getting custody of the two girls. And by all accounts, they're thriving. Oh. They have cousins that they're now sisters with.
I love it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that. Because I was like, I need them to be okay.
They're okay. I mean,
after everything they've gone through.
They're going to go through a lot, knowing, later on.
Of course.
And all that, but
thankfully, they have a good system around them.
They're being raised by the most amazing people, it seems.
Yay.
Now, after all was said and done with the trial, Nancy's family created the Butterfly Fund, which is a charity that will help abused women. And the hope is that Nancy's daughters and her nieces will someday be able to run the charity in her name. And the family actually wanted to do even more to keep her memory alive. So Nancy's younger sister, Jill, and her dad created this program, and it helps women get out of abusive relationships and help them get back on their feet.
Amazing.
Apparently it operates as a very low-key mission. It's like under the radar kind of thing. So women can go there without their families or anybody knowing.
Awesome.
Like, so that there's no kind of stigma put on them afterwards or
trail
during.
of it.
It's a Monday through Friday program. It's 6 months long, and over 170 women have been through the program, and many of them have just gone on to lead like happy lives and get away from their abusers.
Amazing.
And Jill said that by the time most of the women are ready to leave, they just look like totally, completely different people.
I love that.
Nancy's family said that the hardest part of the whole case, obviously other than losing their loved one, was the fact that Brad never apologized to them or gave them any kind of explanation of anything.
Yeah, that would be the hardest part.
Like nothing. And Jill said he actually glanced at her for a moment, like while he was on trial, and she said that there was a slight smirk on his face, like she could have sworn. Shockingly, Brad served his sentence and walked out of prison in November 2020.
What?
Yup.
He's
A free man.
he's just around?
Yup. Served his sentence for murder. Murdering his wife.
No, I hate it.
And is out of prison. Yep. But I don't want to end on that note. I think one of the most important things that was said during this whole case was something that was said by Nancy's father. When speaking about domestic violence, he said, "It's like running up a very gradual hill. Until you look backward, you don't know you're doing it." And I think that's what domestic violence done in this fashion is all about. It's very gradual.
Oh, that's horrific.
Absolutely horrible.
The only thing that I'm happy about is that he can never contact those
Exactly.
children.
Like he gave up
thank
all
goodness.
his parental rights.
Thank goodness. That was
Like
part of it.
I don't know who thought to add that in there, but all of the kudos to you.
Yeah, for real.
All of the kudos. And I
oh my God.
think it's so important to note that like her father's so right. Domestic violence is such a gradual thing. Like it starts with little tiny things keeping you away from your family. Then it like goes up into
That's how it is.
financial things. And then it's like, I'll do you can't go here. Like you can't go there. It's
control.
happens
It's slowly controlling a person by removing any lifeline they have or any kind of independence they could ever have from you.
And sometimes
they
it
have to rely
happens
on you.
so slowly that the people around you don't even realize it's happening, and then you have no way of telling them.
That's why these things end up so many times like this, like some a tragic thing, because there's just it feels like there's no way out.
Right. And a lot of times there really isn't a way out. It's horrible.
Oh, if you are in that situation, because again, it's like, it's dangerous. It's dangerous to leave sometimes too, and it's dangerous to stay. So a lot of times people feel like there isn't an option. There's no other option.
Right.
But
seriously, if you are in this position or you love or care about or even just know somebody that's in this position, there is a way out. There are so many resources that you can go to, and one of them that I have is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can call 1-800-799-SAFE, and that's 1-800-799-7233. You can text START to 88788. Again, START to 88788, or you can go to thehotline.org/get-help, and you can chat live with like a person on that website, and there is a way to get out safely. And because this is a Canadian case, we also want to throw some of those out there. I think Elena has those for you.
I have a couple that I found. So there is sheltersafe.ca that you can go to. It provides information to help connect women and their children all across Canada with the nearest shelter in their area for safety and support in a time of crisis. There is also there's a hotline called Hope for Wellness 24/7. The number is 1-855-242-3310, and it's available to all Indigenous peoples across Canada who are seeking immediate crisis help.
That's amazing.
And so I think that Shelter Safe is a really good one, and those are the ones that we found, but we'll put them all in the show notes too. But yeah, please try to get help, because there's help out there.
Yes.
But
and if you love somebody, try to get them help. Just take care of each other.
Be kind to each other.
We're all humans. Just treat people the way you want to be treated. Why is that such a hard concept?
Exactly.
We start learning that when we're like 3 years old.
Like what? And I can't. This kind of stuff is just like,
it really is sad, but it's so really important to tell these tales so that hopefully it can help somebody else in the future not go through this.
And I'm glad that Nancy's legacy is now helping other women get out of that situation.
Exactly. Like that takes the power back from Brad.
It really does.
Brad can go for himself.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So thank you for listening.
Yeah.
And we hope you keep it weird. Obviously, I don't even have to tell you not to keep it weird, because that's really ridiculous if you try to keep it that weird, and I will find you.
Be nice to each other.
If you like Morbid, you can listen early and ad-free right now by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. Prime members can listen ad-free on Amazon Music. Before you go, tell us about yourself by filling out a short survey at Wondery.com/survey.